So I'd like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Dr. Hans Rosling. Hans has always followed his passion to make a great difference in this world. Trained in medicine and statistics in Sweden, he tracked a new paralytic disease in Africa to hunger and dietary toxins. His interest in global health trends led him to develop trend analyzer software, which Google later purchased. Hans also founded the Gapminder Foundation and presents trend data on economic, social, and environmental change in the world in a compelling yet entertaining way. I invited Hans to speak to us as he is one of the strongest advocates that I know about the need for innovation and action to solve the world's interrelated problems. It is my pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Hans Rosling. I know you'll all enjoy his talk.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be invited by the Department of Energy of the United States for a very specific reason for me. The agencies of this department stands out as an example in the world on how data should be provided. It's absolutely fantastic. You provide the data that the international energy agencies sell. You provide carbon dioxide emission data years before the United Nations, and the wonderful snow and ice data center in Denver, Colorado, I follow every day during the summer. Thank you so much. The tax money was well spent. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk obviously about people, because I'm a professor in global health, and the conference is about energy. But it's a little jump in between, so I decided I had to put in money also, people, money and energy. And mainly I will focus on people, and it won't be boring because I'm talking about demography. And demography is about sex, birth and death. And those three things together, sex, birth and death, that gives you numbers, the number of people we have. And the number of people, when you times it with the dollar they have, and the choices they make, and the technology they use, that give you the energy demand. So basically it's all sex behind everything. And I will stop at the energy demand because I know there's so many more here during this conference that can talk much more about the energy, how to provide it, and the supply, and the prices that arises between the differences in demand and supply. So let's go to the sex. Here, father and mother. In historical time, hundreds and thousands of years back, they used to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children. Why didn't the world population grow over those thousands of years up to about 1800? We only made it to 1 billion people by the year 1800. It was because, tragically, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the children died before growing up to become parents themselves. This you can call the old balance. It was death that controlled population. People mainly lived in misery. And what will happen now next? What will happen next? We are 7 billion in the world today. Many say this is a logarithmic growth, but be careful. Since 1960, we haven't had logarithmic growth. It's a linear growth. The growth rate is falling, falling, falling. Because would it be a steady growth rate of the world population? It would be logarithmic, but it's not. So what's happening? We come to the pretest in demography. When I was born, we were less than 1 billion children below 15 years of age in the world. And then it increased, so the turn of the century, there were 2 billion children below age 15 in the world. And in the future, United Nations Population Division has made a projection. It's one of those 3 lines. The other 2 I made up to make it a quiz for you. Do you think that the projection of the best demographers is that it will continue the same rate during this century and we will be 4 billion by the end? Will it slow down a little? It will be a little less than 3? Or do they say, no, the number of children stop growing, there will be no more children? Can those who think 4 raise their hand? How many go for 4? How many go for 3? How many think there will be just 2? It was good you invited me. The number of children have stopped growing. We have reached peak child. You may debate peak oil during this meeting. Peak child we have reached. I say that this is the most important game-changing news that the media missed. That the number of children. Because this is how population will stop growing, isn't it? Because there are no UFOs coming in middle age to join the world population, you know. And everyone who is born as a baby. So if the number of children stops growing, then eventually, sooner or later, the population will stop growing. So let me show the next thing, what has happened. Can we trust demographers? John Wilmot, who was professor of demography in Berkeley, would think that's the best thing a demographer can be. No, he moved to New York to become head of the population division of the United Nations. It is one of those divisions of the United Nations which is the best place you can get as a scientist in that branch. They did the projection in 1958 and said that we would be more than 6 billion people in the world by the year 2000. 68 they said this, and 78 they said this. And at that time people said they were stupid. We can't be 6 billion, everyone understands. There can't be more than 1 billion people in India, it's obvious. Media wrote a lot of derogative things about the demographers, and they silently continued like this. Now we have the answer. Census have been made. We know. Respect. Do you have anyone who can predict the energy demand in the world 42 years ahead with 3% mistake? Medicine can't do it, energy can't do it, economy can absolutely not do it. So they know what they are doing. How can they know this? Because this is pretty predictable. What has happened now is that it won't be like this, because we have reached a new balance. We have almost reached 2 children per woman in the world. It's 2.4, 2.5 today. And thereby we know that it will soon end. Within the mid of this century, the fast population growth will come to an end. Then it may grow a little or start to decrease or wobble around 10 billion. And what is it that has happened? Well, look at this graph here. Look at this graph. I thought I had a pointer somewhere. Yeah, here. We have developed, this is new technology. It's a solidified beam from a laser pointer through very, very special done here. Look here. Every bubble here is a country. The size is population. This is China. This is India. The color shows the continent up there, you can see. Down here, the brown is Europe. The red there is Japan in Eastern Pacific, Western Asia. And this is United States, the yellow one there. 1963, 50 years ago, I show here the number of babies per woman, 2, 4, 6. Small families, large families. And here the number of children dying, 100 per thousand born, 200 per thousand born, up here 30% of the children died. You can see the difference between the developed world, small families, low mortality, developing world, large families and high mortality. But what has happened? What has happened is also these things that media miss. I marked Bangladesh, this huge Muslim country which is exceptionally poor, we can say still, and was even more 1962, though it has a fast population, fast economic growth today. But look what happened. I take down the speed and ready, steady, go. Here we go. You can see that child mortality is falling here. China is coming down there. This is Brazil coming down here. They start family planning in China, and in Brazil they don't listen to the Vatican. They go on here and they use them. Here Mexico is coming, Mexico is following. This is India going down. These are green, are the Arab countries, and this is the Islamic Republic of Iran. No, this is the Islamic Republic of Iran. Can you see how they go with family planning there? This is Indonesia coming down. And look at Bangladesh, what they are doing. And in this century now, even the African countries start moving very fast and they start to follow up. This is Ethiopia. It's a completely new world we have. The average 2.5. Now people say it's because of this one-child policy of the communists in China. People overestimate the impact of communists. They're 1.6. 1.6. They're normally not so successful. Look at Japan. I can't understand why you suddenly think that communists should be successful when it comes to bedrooms. 1.4 here in Japan. There are many countries that has lower number of children per woman, and that's the reason why it becomes this average, because so many has lower fertility rate. And here we are looking at the future. Look at Ethiopia, for instance. I split Ethiopia. The capital is already down with Asia. The war-torn Somali region, that is high still. These are two-child families all across the world today. And where do people live? We have about 7 billion people in the world. There is 1 billion in America, 1 billion in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 4 in Asia. Remember, pin code of the world, 1114. And we will be 1 billion more in Asia. It will grow with this. Africa will still grow. And up to the end of the century, there will be 3 billion in Africa. Pin code will change, 1135. That's when the fast population growth will be over. And mind you, that if I split East and West Europe, North and South America, you will have the so-called Western world, the Old West. They will have about 10% of the world population. And 80% of the world population will live in Asia and Africa. This is the game changer. This is what interests the CEO of the major international companies most, that demography runs before economy today. Let me explain a little more carefully. Here, each of these dolls are 100 million. This is below age 15, below age 30, and up here, this is me, a European 60 plus. The green one is the Americas. You see, we are missing 100 million seniors in Latin America there. Africa has already 400 million below 15 years. Asia has stopped growing with the children. A lot of old people that should be filled up there. Not necessarily because life gets longer. This is what happened. The old dies, the other one grow older, and they get their children. The old die, the rest grow older, and they get their children. The old die, the rest grow older, and they get their children. And the old die, and they grow older, and they get their children. This is the inevitable fill-up of adults. It's unavoidable that we will be 2.5 billion more. This is people who will live longer. I hope I will be this guy up here. And I can be in geriatric care reading statistics that comes out every year. This is up for debate. Will there be less in Africa as Africa is successful? Will there be less in Africa? We don't know this down here. That's the only thing which is debatable. The rest is pretty clear how it will be. The number of children in the world have stopped growing. The future population growth will be adults, but more children in Africa, less in Asia. This we know quite clearly what will happen. If I would move to money now, I can move to money. I will show you this graph instead here. And I will start 1800. When the richest country in the world, because now I've put income here, $300, $3,000, $30,000 in purchasing power in present value, as good as you can do it in economic history. Here I have length of life, 40 years, 60 years, and 80 years. The whole world was miserable. There was not a country that lived longer than 40 years. Terrible child mortality, as I showed you. And Britain thought they would be richest forever, you know. And America here aspired, United States, to catch up. This was the Netherlands. The rest was down here. Most of the world was down here. And this is what happened. Can you see what happens here? Britain forged on there in the front. United States started to follow. And here comes, by the end of the century, now United States is leading. And what we saw was first economic growth, then improvement of health. With new discoveries, industrially produced soap, vaccines, knowledge and understanding of nutrition. And then came the 2 world wars, and after that, United States in the front, the sweet 50s, you know, richer than everybody else here in the front. And then come China there from behind. It's interesting to see that China was down there, and United States was up there. And Mao Zedong said, at least let's be healthy. So he took the population up there, and then he died. And Deng Xiaoping said, now let's be rich. And then they moved over there. It's quite interesting to see that today we have countries all the way from Congo, Afghanistan, India. This is what Tom Friedman called the flat world. We have people who get healthy, educated first, and then they get rich. The sequence of the event is the other way around. That's why the need of energy will come so fast now across the world population. In the one end of this are the poorest people. Congo, they live in extreme poverty. They need to get out of poverty, they need to get away from poverty. To me, this is poverty. These are two girls, young girls who should be in school. They use their muscular power to carry water home here. This to me is the first step of economic growth and poverty alleviation. A proud woman, Mrs. Tapo, who has invested in a wheelbarrow, and she can now take home 3 burdens and the girls can go to school. Industrial revolution is a blessing for health. And still, you know, almost no energy other than food. And to get away from poverty, I spent about 20 years doing research in remote parts of rural Africa, and this is one of the women we interviewed. She's bringing her products, agricultural products, to the market here. And we asked her, what will help you to get away from poverty? And she said, not one thing. She said, oh, school was very important. I can count. No one can cheat me. Health is good. Thank you for the mosquito net that we got from the aid. The nurse explained how to use it. Infrastructure is great. The World Bank gave credit for this road. Now I can move faster. Rights, human rights is very important because my husband is good. He works in the city to build us a house. And I'm alone, and they mustn't steal from me. I must have my own rights. Cell phones is fantastic. Now we know the price of the goods in the village. I don't have a cell phone, but it exists, that information in the village. Agrotechnology, better seeds, fertilizer is important. Credits were fantastic. They bought us this bicycle. I can move further. And we need the market. We can sell there, but I want a job. Come invest in the textile factory. And I have a dream, electricity. Electricity. If you get one bulb, one electric bulb, it reduces child mortality as much as all the vaccines. It creates family life. The young daughter can do her homework inside the house in the evenings. Electricity is absolutely fantastic in poverty. That has been sort of forgotten. We go just for the technical direct medical intervention. There's enormous energy need out among the poorest people. Now, how are they distributed? How is this income distributed? It's like this. Just money now, nothing else. $1 a day, $10 a day, $100 a day. This is the OECD, the richest. Perhaps there are some who are very rich, they would be over here somewhere, the 1% in US richest people over there. But then comes to most of it. This is the West, the OECD, and this was 1970. Wasn't it? 1970, yes. Latin America, the Soviet economy, East Asia, South Asia, and Africa. And look what happened. What happened was that an enormous part of people got out of poverty at the same time as population was growing. Population was growing there, and they got out of poverty. $1, what is that? $1 is when you can eat enough food so children can play and adults can work. Below that, it's only Matthew 6:11 that is important. Our daily bread give us today. This is the first. From here on, you have more than food, and you can start live something like a life. And then you can see how many people get out of this and how they get healthier and healthy and wealthy, and that's where we are today. But what we are sensing is only this group. We now have half the world economy in the Old West, the mature markets, whatever you call it, OECD. We have half the world economy outside, and look what is coming. Look what is coming. These are the people today who may have a bulb, light bulb, but nothing more. These are the people who just have open fire. They don't even have access to any modern form of energy supply. It's an enormous challenge to make this work. Now, in the middle, we have the emerging economies. And this summer I had the privilege to lecture to Ji Gang. He's the head of state administrator of foreign exchange in China. He is the biggest investor in the world. He has $3 trillion to invest. And I asked him, is my worldview correct? I asked him. And he answered, I don't know, but it's identical to mine. So here you go. This is the way China looks at it. Now, I wouldn't agree on lots of things that the Chinese government, I'm not at all found on all those dictatorial things they are, but you have to admire how they are growing their economy. This is how they grew their foreign exchange. From 1978, Deng Xiaoping started, seems as nothing happens. Then a little happened 95, then they got richer and richer and richer, and then they bought the Volvo company, and the Swedes understood that the world was changing. It's an enormous change. But this is because I use a linear graph. Can you see? When you look at the world linearly, you don't see what is happening in the rest of the world. I have to open this. I have to do something brave on stage. I go into PowerPoint. I enter into the Excel figure here. I do right mouse button, format axis, and I do logarithmic scale there. This is horror, isn't it? Very, very brave. I'm very brave. And there you are. It took 1 year for Deng Xiaoping to get onto growth. Took away central planning and said, let them come with invest, let technology come. And then the foreign exchange reserve was growing like this. We don't see countries when they grow from a very, very low level. We don't get that. That is very important to realize. This is a summary. There are 2 billion people in the world who have fire. There are 1 billion people who have a lot of energy use. They have a lot of electrical equipment in home, and they can fly by airplane for holiday to remote destinations. But we are 7 billion in the world. How do these live in between? Well, I call this the poverty line. I call this the airline. And who have a washing machine? That's 1 billion. They live above the wash line. And I used to ask environmentalists and the young students in Sweden, I asked them always, do you have a car? And they proudly say, no, I don't have a car, I don't have a car. And then I asked them, how many of you hand wash your jeans and your bed sheet? And no one raised their hand. Well, actually, there was one guy at Stockholm University, but he was sitting at the corner and there was a hollow empty around him. That's the only one who hand washed so far I've seen. These three would have a bulb at home. Now, will population growth, will that be the important? In the next 40 years, we will get 2 billion people more in the world, but they are low consumer of fossil fuel. These are the fossil fuel consumption, units of fossil fuel. The richest 1 billion use half of the 12. Half of the consumption is here. By adding 2 billion people there doesn't make much difference. Population growth is not the issue when it comes to energy. It's economic growth that is the issue. Look here. These ones will move over. They got the Volvo company. That's part of China, Brazil, South Africa, India. They're already moving over there. And this one with the bulb, they fancy, we want a washing machine, they say. So they will move here. And they will double their use of energy. And this one will move into the light and they will increase their energy use. The economic growth will add 9.5 units and population growth only 1.5. It's one of the worst misconceptions is that population growth is the issue. That's because they have missed peak child. And, well, I think we will see more energy efficiency, whether technologically or behavior. We'll try to live our life more energy efficient. Green technology will probably come from that end. I have two types of researchers in Sweden. I have the climate researchers, and then they tell me, oh, the climate will change very much, we have to go green. And I have Kjell Alekleb, who is here, he says that we will peak with oil. This shale gas is just a short period. We will go green because we won't have fossil fuel in the 10 to 20, 30 years from now. We need to go green, considering the enormous need of energy. So this is to me interesting, that there are different assessments come to the same conclusion, we need more energy sources. And when you listen to the most serious body in the world, which is probably the standing committee and the central committee of the Communist Party in China, because they have the highest educational level in technology and analysis of all heads of states, of all leaders in states in the world. And they go very diversified in their energy supply. They go very, very diversified. And they look at all different possibility of sources because they are going to grow their economy enormously. This is the final race. Let me show you here what will happen with the economy, why they will have so much more need for energy. 1800, 1900, and 2000. Here, dollar per person, 400, 4,000, and 40,000. I have United Kingdom 1800 leading, United States second best time for the final. Here I have Sweden, Japan, and China together. Few in Sweden want to realize that we are the Japan of Europe. We are much closer to Japan in our development than we are to the Netherlands. Here I have the last group, South Korea, Ethiopia, India, Brazil, and Tanzania. They were down here. This is what happened as years passed by. You had an economic growth in United Kingdom, but United States catched up. This is more or less when my relatives decided, 1848 they came across. Huge parts of my relatives came across to Minnesota. And you can see it was not only religious oppression, there were also much better life in the United States. They got a better life, better opportunities. They earned more money almost directly. And here Sweden took off. Japan is following. The rest of the world is dominated. They don't move. Here we got the split world. We go through the First World War. We go through the recession and the Second World War. And you can see how Japan fell. This is Japan trying to follow Sweden. Sweden eventually catches up with UK 1948. But then US is in the top. And Brazil is now trying to emerge here. Independent country. Those are still dominated countries down there. And here you see Japan makes it. They catch up. I sold my Volvo, I bought the Toyota. And here comes Brazil, military junta. They didn't make it, but South Korea is overtaking. And now China is coming, India is coming. And look down there, Tanzania and Ethiopia. Now I'm going to predict the economic growth of the future because I have a stick. Can you see that little blip on US there? That's the Lehman Brothers doorstep when the sort of came down like this. The most important is not those crises, it's that the growth in between the crises is getting slower and slower in percent. Although there's an additional amount of money. And Europe has come to a standstill together with Japan. These ones are forging ahead. And if I put the stick like this and point it up there, I see that they will meet more or less 2048, the 27th of July. And that is my 100th birthday. So I make this stupid prediction just to make it psychologically realize that it may happen in my lifetime. What happened with Japan may happen with China in my lifetime, may happen with India in my lifetime, and see how well the African countries are doing. They are doing. It's just the top of the African population. There's so much poverty still. Aid is still needed in the most remote areas, but there's really a big change coming here. So let me try show you here what this means in carbon dioxide emission. Here I have carbon dioxide emission in tons per person on this axis. Here I have income per person on this axis. 400, 4,000, 40,000. This is 1952, United States in the top. Let me change the size of bubbles to not be population. But I do like this, and I go here for environment, emission, and I take yearly carbon dioxide emission in ton there. There you are. You can see United States was really dominating. And China was very small down there. Not much to talk about. And then this is what happened. This is what happened. That the rest of the richer countries started to emit more and more carbon dioxide. The United States more or less stabilized on a high level. And there China is coming. And they're coming up here. Now, how can I miss some countries? This is just because CDIAC is providing data for the world. Thanks once more. Thank you very much. I have to go back, strangely enough, to 2008 to get the complete data for the world. Now, there's no way the rest of the world, which is emerging, you can see this is 1 billion people. This is 1 billion people here. This is the 2nd billion who have the washing machine. Here you have the other 8 billion coming. We have to plan for emissions for 10 billion people by the end of this century. And I had the opportunity to be at the energy discussion 5 years ago in the World Economic Forum in Davos, where they lined up at the table haphazardly. We had the emerging economies on one side and the West on the other side. And then the Indian Minister of the Environment got angry because everyone was blaming India for increasing their emissions so much. And he stood up and he said, "It was you, the West, you destroyed the climate. If this will happen, you emitted all this carbon dioxide." But in the best of Gandhi manners, "But we forgive you. We forgive you." Because we can never make a point of something which was retrospectively. We didn't know when that happened. But from this day, we count per capita. From this day. And that was an intellectual clarity that impressed on me. There is no way we can negotiate emissions and how we want, how much, how we assess the risk. I'm not the one to assess the risk for climate change, but we have to assess the risk. But we have to do it on the same per capita levels in the different countries. And some countries are way up high, way up high. And to me it's very interesting that Sweden, which is down there, look, we have economic growth and we have very low emission. Why could that be? How can it be like that? Can you explain that in some way? Can one look at energy here? Can one look at nuclear generation per person? Aha! The environmental movement have still not discussed nuclear together with climate. It's difficult. These are difficult issues, truly difficult technically and politically. But they will come together and be discussed whether this will be taken into account when you assess if you should have nuclear power in the future. Presently, Germany is closing and importing coal from the United States. It's very strange. We never thought it would happen. So the world is changing, and people are accepting it. And I would like to end by honoring George W. Bush. This is not done often officially by public health professors from Sweden in the United States. But it's true, and I'm serious. This is the 15th of November 2008. He was called a lame duck by his own people. It's a nasty thing to call your president. And there was a severe economical crisis, and he needed money. He went for the pocket, but the pocket was empty. There was no money. So what do? You need money, you have no money. You need to go to your friends. So he went to Merkel, he went to George Brown, he went to Sarkozy, and they said, "We have no money either. We have the same problem as you have. It's a joint problem." So what do? You have no money, your friends have no money, you need new friends. And President George W. Bush got it. The world has changed. We need new friends. And he decided to invite them. He made a very nice meeting. And President Lula has told about the phone call, how he did it. And he was very politely invited to Washington. I think this was a very good meeting. It was a very good meeting. Heads of state came together in a time of crisis. And they came to understand each other in a new way. If you zoom in, you can see in diplomatic photos like this, there's an enormous negotiation who should stand where. I'm trying to understand exactly how this, but you can see the one who stands next to the host, of course, is the one who's going to lend most money. It must be like this. So who was the one who saved US in that crisis? It was one socialist, a communist, and two Muslims. And then Mexico, Turkey, and India. Brazil lends every year since 2008 $30 billion to the United States of America. It's the same size of money as the whole US aid. And what I like especially with Bush, he's standing here between two of the worst dictators in the world. And then he leans, can you see, he leans to the Democratic guys. I think he wanted to mark this for the history books. I think it comes out very nice on this. But it's the new world. You have Erdogan from Turkey there, you have Singh from India in behind. This is what we will have. Gapminder, my foundation, we try to be a fact tank, not a think tank. We don't run advocacy. We want to make the numbers understood. And we are moving into energy to do that. So Mind the Gap, we took that from London Underground, and we say, come to our website, upgrade your mindset with our animated data sets. Thank you very much.